This is Scratch Your Own Itch, the one show that delivers the conversations that we're afraid to share, but need to. This show is all about creating a life worth living. I'm Logan Tyler Nelson, and I'm your host. So, you're going to hear conversations with creators and entrepreneurs talk about what they do, their current and past traumas, how they became who they are, and what they are truly curious about. This is the show where we talk about the things we think about a lot, but need to talk about more. Please take note that this show is not a substitute for actually creating a life worth living, because this show will stir your beliefs, make you question what it means to create a life worth living. So my promise to you is to always give you one question to answer for yourself today to start turning your dreams into a reality. Hey friends, thank you so much for taking the time to support this show by just tuning in and listening. I really appreciate it. And wow, this is an episode that you do not want to miss. This guy is someone who really blew my mind, and that doesn't happen very often. I'm very lucky to have Ron as a guest. No joke. He's the man, and now I've got 3 names for him. I got Ronnie, Ronald, and Ron. So I think we'll figure out exactly. I think the best thing is to check out his Facebook and his Instagram. I'll throw that in the show notes. But Ronald Teasdale, we talk about identity, beliefs. We talk about his stories and how he became a CrossFit champion at one point, and just his sort of methodology to look at the world sets him up for a real belief system. And so we get into that, and I don't want you guys to think that I'm not listening to your reviews. I just didn't get any new ones. But if you want to take the time and leave me a review, that would be awesome, because it just helps this podcast get found. It's super simple. You just scroll down to the bottom and leave a review about your thoughts about this podcast and what it's doing for your life. And also hit that subscribe button if you want to get this on your iTunes, and every single time I upload a new episode, you get that call out that, hey, Scratch Your Own Itch just released a new episode. And I want to let you guys know that this podcast is really for you. It is me as the host, but it's for you to really ask yourself that question, that curiosity question about life, about things that you care about, to scratch your own itch. And I think it's we're changing. There's a new paradigm that's happening. It's happening at a rapid it's happening really fast, so get ready for it. The paradigm is education is just not happening in online course anymore, or education is just not happening by going to school anymore. It's happening on these podcasts. It's happening on audiobooks. It's happening on the practice that you actually put out in life. And learning these new skills that you want to learn is only done by asking yourself quality questions. So this podcast this episode is the art of really not caring, because you know that deep down you're going to get to your goal. So what is it that you don't care about right now that's giving you great results? Really ask yourself where that happens right now in your life. Where are you getting results that you don't even mean to? Because that might be an area where you might have a really amazing zone of genius that you need to get better at. So, with this all said, enjoy my interview with Ronnie Teasdale. Hey, you. Yeah, just you. So my curiosity question is, have you ever just decided to care a little bit less about how something turned out? All right, let me set the tone. You've done the work. You've practiced that all that you can. You've practiced pretty much as you can. And then you still try harder and harder and harder. But then you have this thing in your life, maybe where you just try to stroll around doing work without care in the world. And for some odd reason, success, this magic comes out of it. Some new achievement that you never thought would gain out of just having carelessness. If this speaks to you, then this episode was made for you. And hey, maybe you haven't had this I don't really give a F for anything sort of tactic because you love trying really hard at everything you do. But my guest today is the master of doing just enough to elicit change. On the outside, he makes it look easy, and on the inside, he's a working master at mindfulness and the truth of what he wants to be in the world. If you're wondering who my guest is today, his name is Ronald Teasdale, or some people refer him to as Ronnie, and he's a 35-year-old. He lives in Los Angeles, and he has degrees in psychology and exercise science. He owned a few gyms in downtown LA for 10 years. He closed them down, and after discovering that there is so much more to health than just diet and exercise. So now he spends his time furthering his exploration and researching into the depths of the human being and the environment we call reality. So, without further ado, and to get me shut up, I would love to introduce you to Ronnie Teasdale. Hey, Ron, man. How you doing, dude?
Good, I'm great. Man, Logan, that was an awesome intro. That was one of the best, actually.
Really, dude? Oh, dude, thanks,
great.
man.
Your tone of voice and everything. I want to listen to this thing. I'm getting excited for whatever we're going to get into.
Oh, dude, nice. I love it, man. Yeah, this intro, I take a passion in the intros, man. I want to set it right, but really, I'm most interested in you. I'm interested in you and what you really are doing in the world, because I am so fascinated by the way you do things. And really, the mission of this podcast is to first make people feel less alone and then give them like little mindset tactics and habits that ultimately change the way they operate in the world. And so I want to ask you that one question you think that really challenged you, that ultimately changed you. And we kind of talked off air a little bit about that, but wherever you think that story starts, I'd love to hear it.
All right. Yeah, I mentioned you say feeling alone, and I felt like I was a good kid my entire life, following the rules and believing all the stories, like the stories of Santa Claus and Easter Bunny. My parents had to sit me down and tell me about them not being real. And everybody around me didn't believe in this stuff. So I was always one to follow the rules and believe the stories that were told to me. And that did feel me. I felt alone during those times of my life because everybody else was breaking the rules, right? Everybody was breaking the rules. So for the majority of my childhood, I was trying to be the best person that I could. And the only way that you're sort of taught at that age is by following the rules. And man, if I were to have to point to one thing that really just shattered that entire paradigm, it was 9/11. Because at that point, I really started seeing that things aren't what they seem. So without getting into what may or may not have happened on 9/11, because that could be a sensitive topic, I just, a general overview, it was 1.5 years or 2 years after 9/11 happened, and I was in college. And I was already meditating, and I was already like sort of really mindful and becoming conscious. I was studying psychology, and as one of the courses, I had to compare two different arguments. I just had to write a paper and compare and contrast two opposing arguments. And for whatever reason, I picked 9/11. And so I found all the research I could on 9/11 happened like the media said. And then all the research I could on 9/11 happened another way. And I found like 100 times more research and data and videos and interviews and philosophy on 9/11 happened differently than the media said it happened. And then I just started questioning everything, right? And realizing that, wow, I was playing the rules of a game that I never signed up for, and also never validated the rules even fit me, right? We're all sort of born into society and we have to follow these rules, but we never, our opinion doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So that's me in college, right? I'm going through this whole, religion has fallen apart already. And then now government's falling apart in terms of like a structure in my mind of what's holding life together, right? And so now I'm just left with myself. And the good thing about that time is the internet was coming out. So the time I'm speaking of is right after 2001, right? So the internet's coming out and getting popular, and you can start finding a lot of things on there. And I'm glad I'm born in this time, because it was really easy to find information, a lot of information. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I just started searching everything. When I was going to college, I didn't really buy books because I was consumed with what I could find on the internet. I wouldn't even read anything in college. I would go to classes, come home, and just be searching the internet for information of all topics.
It's amazing that you actually cultivated a very curious mindset, and it's sort of this. What I love to do is to question what my first belief is, and it's really hard to keep doing that, because then you do get into this rabbit hole of asking yourself, like, what is reality, in a really hippy dippy way. And the Matrix is my version, I guess, of 9/11 for you. It just opened me up and just made me go, why am I here as a human being? Like, what are we here for as a humanity? And what are we going to do with the time that we have here? And who is the person that created us? And all those deep questions. So I get you there, man. I really do. One thing that I find fascinating though about you is dude, you're a CrossFit champion, and you've done so much with the fitness. Do you think that could be actually a byproduct, this sort of like getting yourself outside of your head, and getting yourself out of your head is by doing these crazy hard fitness workouts? I mean, I know it's my way. So let's hear about your history with CrossFit real quick.
CrossFit actually taught me a lot on how to train my physical body. And now I use that same sort of exercise tactic to exercise my mindset and my consciousness. So what I mean by that is CrossFit's it's a sport now, but it started off as a philosophy and an art form, a way of training the body. And the purpose of CrossFit gyms is to set up a health program where one can constantly evolve all of their skills. So the way that I owned a few of these gyms, and it was great. It was a dream come true for me. It was, and I could talk all day on that journey, but I ended up creating my dream, my childhood dream of just being able to work out all day long and live in sunny California and, just the whole life. It was, I mean, I've been living a dream for a really long time, and that this was a major part of it. So the way that I interpreted CrossFit was that if a person starts to get good at something, like let's say let's use the word great. It's a little bit better than good. If someone starts to get great at something, that their time would be better spent learning a skill that they're not good at, because you will make greater improvement in your overall general physical preparedness if you start filling in your weaknesses and getting your weaknesses stronger, rather than just continuing to get strong at the things you're already strong at. And when I'm saying the word strong, I mean not physically strong, but just different capacities like cardiovascular, accuracy, balance, agility, speed, power, even strength. So if you take all of those things and you imagine yourself as a video game character where you can like fill in the blocks to like make yourself stronger, more accurate, more balanced, more agile, you're trying to get all the blocks even so that you don't have any weaknesses. And so through the process of training my physical body this way, so what I mean by that is whenever I got great at something, I would stop training that. So if I was able to jump really high, I can jump up to my nipples, which for me, that's pretty high. If I would have to train for years to be able to jump up to my chin, and that's not a very big difference. So in order to get a 10% gain, I would have to train for 2 years, 3 times a week. Whereas I could start working on one-legged squats, right? That might take flexibility, balance, and some strength. And if I'm not good at one-legged squats, I can make that skill better. And at the end, I'll have a new skill. And the one-legged squats probably would help me at jumping higher. So I was just constantly taking care of my weaknesses. When I got good at something, I would move on. And eventually that led me to slacklining, which is like tightrope walking, and unicycling, and working out with blindfolds on, working out with duct tape on my mouth so I can just breathe out of my nose, working out on a full stomach, working out on an empty stomach, basically just being able to do everything. And I ended up being pretty good at the sport of CrossFit, which is a more specified version of fitness. But because I was doing all this other crazy stuff, I think it just made me really good at doing the sport. And I'm going to keep talking. And how that translates into my mind is that I recognize that there's more than one lens to look at reality or look at anything. So there's more than one way to look at something, and those ways might contradict each other, but they might also be true. They might also both be true. And I would argue that there's infinite ways to look at one reality, and they're all true. But I started realizing that there's more than one way to look at a certain situation, and we can get really deep into what that means. But the point is that if I already understand one way of looking at a particular subject or a particular aspect of reality, if I'm really good at looking at it, like let's say from a religious stance, a Christian stance, then I don't want to continue strengthening that lens, that perspective, or that window, because I already know that well enough. I know the Jesus story. I know the whole thing, right? So what does astrology say about reality? Right? What do the stars say? What do the stars and planets say? I don't really know much about that. So if I start studying that and building up that lens, then I'll have now two lenses to look at the same picture. And I just started building up my lenses. What is the geometry of reality? What does that say about our reality, right? Everything's just a geometric shape of energy. Or what is the, like, let's throw extraterrestrials into the mix. How can we look at reality where, let's say that they exist? You know, there's a lot of people doing a lot of research saying that they exist. So let's hear what they have to say. And what about different religions? Buddhism, Hinduism. What are they saying about this thing I'm calling life? Zen. You know, the guy I meet at the junkyard. What does he have to say about life? The people downstairs right now, I'm at a house, I'm at a dinner party, and they're talking about life. What do they say about life? And, you know, after 10, 15 years of sort of just being open and receptive to a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different lenses that all think that they're right, they all think that they're the one. Now I've got all these lenses and I can see the main truths in all of them and how they're all kind of saying the same thing. And it's a really powerful place to be because one of the main truths is that we're the creator of all of this. But yeah, did you?
Yeah, man.
Did you have any?
Do I have anything to say?
Yeah, I can keep going or.
No, dude. You will, because what you're saying is things that not a lot of people are really talking about. I mean, the mission of the show. In the show, I actually do say, this is about the things we think about a lot and need to talk about more. And so, with that being said, like, I think there's always there's a very, very extraordinary value that happens to somebody or someone's life when they start questioning this thing and they start looking at it from different lenses. But being able to not be so questionable about everything that you almost forget, like, what is reality. But you're very right, and we are the creator. Like, I also wanted to call this podcast "Create Your Own Life," but my the person who actually taught me how to podcast has a podcast already called "Create Your Own Life." So I was like, nah, can't do that. But it's the truth. Like, you can, if you can will it in your head, it kind of works. And so I want to be a good interviewer and let you talk some more about. Also, like, dude, you had a dream about making your time filled with something that you loved, right? So that was working out. And so you went and you hustled your butt by just driving around with a freaking yoga mat at one point and just asking people if you could stretch them out and charge them a certain fee. Like, let's hear more about that. And that's just, I think it's just an example. It's an example of literally you can create your own life. So you can scratch your own itch or become your own passion. If that's cool with you, we could go down that road. Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get a little vulnerable here and tell you something I don't think I've talked about publicly. I might have. I say a lot of things. I'm pretty open, but you just triggered a memory, and I want to talk about it. I want to share sort of what it takes, right? Because I was in Michigan and I played hockey, so I had to keep myself in shape for that because it's a brutal sport. And so I was in the gym and I love the gym. And there was a time where I asked a guy, a personal trainer, he had like his name tag and all these letters, NASM, PPT, like all these letters above his name. And I was like, hey, what is that? Like, and he's like, those are my certs. And I was like, oh, so you have to be certified to be a personal trainer. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to move to California. And he sort of looked at me like, there's no way you're going to do that. Right? And that might have all been in my head, but that was the look I assumed he gave me. Anyways, I moved to California and I was on a mission to be a personal trainer. And just like doing anything, it doesn't matter how good you are if you're not able to get people to pay you, right? So I moved to California, I had a degree in exercise science. I knew people, I knew fitness, I knew I was an athlete. And now I'm in a city where everybody's a personal trainer. Like the best personal trainers are here. And on top of that, I don't know anybody. And man, I also realized that I didn't have the right certifications to work in the gym I wanted to work in, which I would have just been a freelancer at. And so I wasn't working for the gym. I still had to bring my own clients there. So there was a time where I had to survive with no way of working. So, because I couldn't train anybody at the gym. So I went on Craigslist and I was just finding random jobs. And back then, so this is 12, 11 years ago, back then Craigslist was used for a lot more things than Craigslist is used for now. Craigslist was big back then. And so I was just doing labor jobs, like painting houses and going on Craigslist and being a model, being underwear model, just anything athletic, just to like pay I was staying on somebody's couch and just to pay I had a few $100s of bills every month and I had to pay and I had to just go on Craigslist and find odd jobs. And that was, I remember thinking at one point, like, man, I'm really poor. I'm shopping at food for less. I'm shopping at the dollar store. Back then I would go to the dollar store for food. And for some reason there was this feeling in my heart that this is part of the journey and this is awesome, right? Like this is the time in the journey where I'm going through the hard stuff to get to the glory. And that was somehow I was lucky enough to have that mindset. I remember very specifically feeling that strongly, like this is awesome. I can't even, I can barely buy food right now. I'm staying in a really expensive city and one day I'm going to have everything that I want. So, with that mindset, I trudged on and, I compromised some of I want to say I compromised some of my values, but I don't think I did. I just had to restructure what was deemed appropriate to me. So I restructured and rewrote the rules because I guess when I was living in Michigan, no, actually, to back up, this is when I restructured the rules. In order to make even enough money to move to California, I had to start stripping. I was a very shy person and very, very bad at public speaking. And I had a dream to move to California. I needed money and I needed to get rid of the shyness. So the thing that I thought would do all of that is taking my clothes off in front of women at bachelorette parties. And so at these bachelorette parties, I had to be the life of the party, right? And then I also had to do really revealing stuff. And so yeah, I already was sort of rewriting the rules of what right and wrong means. So anyways, you can see that in the beginning there was struggle. I had to do what I had to do to make the money and hustle. Once I did get a lot of personal training clients, I had a full-time job in the middle of the day. So I was waking up at 5 a.m., training people then going to sell apartment leases for a few hours, and then coming home from that, and then training people till I went to sleep. And there was a couple years where I was doing that Monday through Friday from the time I got up to the time I went to sleep. And then I would take weekends off. And that's how I got enough money to start buying equipment and eventually get into bigger and bigger spaces, and then have the gym I dreamed of almost exactly. The ropes hanging from the ceilings, the big open spaces, the tractor tires and sledgehammers. I mean, it was identical to what I was envisioning. So that's a little on that.
Have you ever wanted to be an authority in something, but maybe you're already too far into your career, or you're a coach, or you're a manager, and you're kind of afraid to change? Because if you stopped doing this thing, you don't know who you'd be anymore. Well, I want to let you know that you are not alone. And I also want to invite you for an incredible opportunity. All you need is 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day to start scratching your own itch. This itch is something that you can't stop thinking about, but you always find yourself reading about this subject on your breaks or when you're absolutely drained even. You find yourself going back to this itch. It's your secret passion. But here's the thing. This little offer is not for everyone. This offer is for that person that you once loved and unfortunately you lost. So let me set the tone. Have you ever lost someone and just wished that you could just let them know everything you're interested in? Tell them all the things that are outside of your crazy busy life, and actually tell them about the things that you care, to just vent to them about how your life would be if they were still around? Well, if you fit this bill, I want you to start scratching your own itch with me. Just text #course to 815-552-1419. I will put that in the show notes, but again, that's #course 815-552-1419. And you're going to find yourself just totally becoming in love with this idea of reflecting and actually taking a small amount of time, just 15 minutes, maybe on your way home from the gym, or maybe from work, or maybe it's on your way to work, just so you can learn how you think and really how to tap into the parts of yourself that you really care about. That's why picking this one person that you wish was still around is so critical. I want you to eventually take these voice memos and transcribe them as a visible potential chapter for your next book. This is something that you can do on your own time. Just 15 minutes a day is all you need. But I'm going to act as your accountability partner by prompting you with certain questions just so you can get started. And there's going to be other people included in this as well. And you're going to receive points every time you actually phone in and do this voice memo. And I just want more people to start scratching their own itch, because I know that it saved my life and it's allowing me to actually create a life worth living. And I believe 100% that it can also give you that ability too. So, again, I invite you to scratch your own itch and start turning your passion into profits. Real profits. The profits for your heart, for your soul, for your whole you.
Wow.
Dude, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's crazy. And I think the reason why it works is because you weren't just like opening up a book and going like, all right, how do I get over being shyness? I'm gonna read about getting over shyness. No, you're like, I'm gonna find a job that is gonna get me over to being shy. And that is, I think that's a very actually great job, stripping, because that'll get you over the shyness. It'll also give you like confidence too, to feel good about yourself at the same time, because you are wooing people. Instead of like getting over your shyness is by just sometimes by going up to a girl and just saying, hey, like I think you're kind of beautiful, because that puts you in a position to just reject yourself a lot. And I think you're a master at setting up the right system. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because I studied psychology, I think I spent a lot of time in the when I was going to school. It was called the latency period, which is the time right before puberty. I didn't hit puberty I was a late bloomer. So basically, I was in high school as one of the smallest kids. Like I looked like I was in fourth grade when I was in eighth grade. When I look back at the pictures, I look really young in eighth grade. And what that
Dude.
causes, were you the
You and
same
me
way?
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So much. Even now, dude, I'm a 27-year-old and I could easily get pounced on by 17-year-olds. Like, and I don't mean that in a weird way. I just mean that in a, like, I look like freaking Jesse McCartney when he was 17. It's weird.
I don't know who that is, but,
No, dude, you don't want to.
okay. I haven't watched TV since I was 17, so I'm
Yeah.
really out of the loop. The, which maybe that has a lot to do with this, right? Because the television is programming. It programs you on how to think. But, yeah, so being a little kid amongst men is, so apparently what that forces the boy to do is to become really creative with strategies on how to be social and just strategies in general, like how to just operate in the world because you're at a disadvantage. And I really think I didn't even start sprouting armpit hair till I was 19. So I was a really late bloomer. And also playing hockey as one of the smallest kids, there was always strategy, always. And even within the sport of CrossFit, I was like a master strategizer. That's kind of what I was known for. And I think that it's all this, it's all connected. It's me sort of always being in a disadvantage and trying to figure out the most valuable way out of it.
Well, that's part of the system, man. That's the system. It's like when you're surrounding yourself by people that are just better than you all the time. Like, we are not creatures of habit all the time, but we are definitely creatures of our environment. So, like, if your environment is like being on top all the time and just being better than everyone else, that can make a person very egotistical, and that can make that person very egocentric, where it doesn't really give them any sort of like strength, like you're talking about earlier. But if you set yourself up with people that are simply better than you, it gives you something to actually do. We can be human beings, or we can be human doings that just get better at stuff. And I love that you're like that you just set yourself up to be in a system where you need to either come up to the hype or you sink. So yeah, that's just my thought on that.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm getting a bunch of flashbacks of it also goes hand in hand with the mindset of doing what you can with what you have. And I think it goes hand in hand with that, because as opposed, so instead of looking at not having things, like maybe not having money, as opposed to looking at that as a disadvantage, looking at it as an advantage. And not having money can be an extreme advantage. Right now, I don't have much money. I haven't worked in a year, and I love it. Like, I'm choosing this. And I'm sort of at level 10 with all this stuff where whatever I need is just flowing to me exactly at the point that I need it. So I don't really need to worry about making money or saving or anything, because whatever I need just comes to me. But back when I got my biggest gym space, when I was like going from one space to a really big space to a 10,000 square foot place, I got this place that was used for like raves for the last 15 years. It was a hotel lobby from a hotel that was about 100 years old. So it had high ceilings and this crazy crown molding, but the whole place was trashed. The ground, the tiles were black. And at the time, I needed a bigger space because my space that I was in before wasn't very big. It was actually on the top floor of a building, and we were shaking the entire building. So I knew I needed to move out. And the only space that I could find that I could afford was this space. And there was piles of garbage everywhere. I mean, there was hallways that you couldn't even walk down because it was floor to ceiling garbage. And I, when the space comes in, and it was 8,000 square foot at the time, but I expanded a little bit. But I was like, wow, this space it's junk, but it's perfect for me. It's exactly what I need. It's cheap enough where I can afford it. And this is the only way it could have happened. This is the only way I could have gotten a space this big, is if it was trashed. And luckily, I worked on a bunch of like very bad quality houses with my dad my entire life. My dad used to use my brother and I as slaves and make us work on all these houses that he would buy. He would buy all these really crappy houses, and then we would have to, I put shingles on 3 different houses. Like I helped roof 3 different houses before I was like 10 years old. And he lost them all during the recession. But his plan for retirement was to buy a bunch of houses, because back then that was a solid plan. But then 2006, 2007 happened. But when I was a kid, I had to work really hard, and I knew a little bit about construction. So when I found this place, I was like, I can make this better. I can make this better. And for months, it was just picking up the I struck a deal with the guy, so he gave me some free rent, which was also helpful. But I was on my hands and knees scrubbing the tile floor of this place from black to white. And it was an awesome journey. It was an awesome part of the journey, like finding a place that once it was fixed up, the rent was a very good price for me, like what he was charging me versus what it was. But it took a lot of work to get to that point, and I was willing to do that work. I forget why I'm even talking about this.
Yeah, well, you're talking about it because of the thing that you want people to know, or that one person that needs to hear this, is to do the best with what you have right now. And when you cultivate that skill is, I'd say it's the number 2 most profitable thing. The number 1 most profitable thing in life is literally learning the skill of belief. Like, you're probably right now in an area where, correct me if I'm wrong, you're cool with not making money right now because you know that you believe 100% in your heart that if it comes to a time where you make like crazy amounts of money because you really dream of something new that you want to actually create in your life, you'll do it. because you have that skill of belief, the number one most profitable skill in the world. But dude, we are coming up to the end, and I'm super sorry about that because I would want to spend like 14 more hours hanging out with you and talking to you because you're amazing and the way you operate in the world. But I want to just ask a few questions. First thing that comes to mind, sort of question. That's the only rule. So whenever you're ready, I'm going to ask you these 3 questions, and then we'll wrap it up with where people can find you if they want to, like, that one person that really needs to become your friend instead of just someone that they heard. They want to connect with you, if that's cool with you, man.
Yeah, of course. I like what you said about the number 1 and number 2 most important things. I think you're spot on with that.
Thanks, man. I just dude, it's because you're giving. It's the law of attraction. Like I had these thoughts. I had this idea about that sort of thing in life, and I want to be around more people that believe in that too. And so it makes total sense of why I even reached out to you to actually get you on this podcast, because you're like, hey, I kind of live in that space. I do that right now. So, anyways, yeah, these 3 questions. The first thing that comes to mind, man. All right. So, the first question is, what do you think is a quote that you just keep finding yourself go back to over and over and over? That just when you're lost, you go and you read that quote and you're like, heck, that makes sense.
So it was a quote when I was moving to California and I was walking through the airport, basically just, after throwing away or giving away all my things, and I'm moving to California with no plan. I want a gym, but at the time you're not like thinking you're going to do it. So I'm just moving there. Don't know. I had people here that I knew, like a friend. I had a friend, but just moving somewhere new. Don't know what I'm going to do. Have no job lined up. Just taking all my stuff. I was passing by a bookstore and there was a quote, and I don't remember it exactly, but this is probably it. It means the same thing, but it just said, jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. And, it was in the precise moment that I was just like having those feelings of like, man, I'm leaving Michigan. I'm getting on this plane alone and I'm going to a new city, and I see this quote, and this is how I've lived my life ever since, because it's
dude, that's so you. That's so you. Oh man. I'm sorry, dude. I want you to keep going, but at the same time, gotta get through this.
Yeah.
The second question is, if you could recommend one freaking book, one book to that person that needs to listen to this right now, what would it be?
Whoa. Seth Speaks.
Seth Speaks?
Yeah. And I could keep on talking on that, but I guess just get the book and look at page 1. There's a paragraph, and if you read that paragraph like 4 or 5 times, you'll realize how epic the book is.
I love it, dude. We'll talk off air about another book that I'll put in the show notes. And if anybody is really wondering what this book is that I'm about to talk to him about off air, just email me, Logan at LoganTylerNelson.com. It's the book that is going to change the way you think about a lot. Otherwise, the third question I'd love to ask you is, what do you want for that person to just try to do today to prove to themselves that stories are just that? They're just stories, and beliefs are just that. They are stories that you're telling yourself. So what do you think people could start doing today to really prove that? And I know that's crazy.
Yeah. So, just give yourself 24 hours to pretend that you are God. Pretend for 24 hours that you are God. Now, what that means is that every scenario that's happening in your life, if you are God, you chose those scenarios, right? So as opposed to looking at the scenarios that happening to you, it's happening for you now, right? Good or bad or whatever. Like you found something, you found it for a reason. Your divineness brought this into your life for a reason. The people you talk to, it's there for a reason, right? Like you chose that. And just experience 24 hours of being God and like let go of your stories of what it means because you're God, right? None of that matters. What matters is that it's all for you. You're blessed that everything is happening. Just try it for 24 hours. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's huge, man. Man, I wish we could do like 14 hours, but we got to wrap it up. I do want to plug you though, man. Where can people find you if they want to like come out and talk to you about your life and what you're doing in it and become real friends with you?
Yeah, so I've got a lot of different projects. The best place is just to follow me on social media. So I've got Instagram's the main thing. It's RA, so RA_NOLD. And then Facebook is Ronald Teasdale.
Cool.
And yeah, that's the two main things.
Nice, man. I'll throw that in show notes. Yeah, if you listen to this right now and you think of something that Ronnie or I said and you want to like start believing in this, I think it's by quoting it, putting it on Instagram, putting it on Facebook, putting it on Twitter, like, and tag us and get us involved in your life. Because when you surround yourself with people and you create an environment that you want to be around more, you don't need to be in that person's space directly. You can just hang out with them through the awesome tool of technology. And so, yeah, I am super happy you came on, Ronnie, man. I want to get you on again because I know that you have way more to say. And this is only the beginning, man, of our relationship. I really believe it, dude.
Logan, man, like you're talented at what you do. I want to tell you that. I've been on a lot of podcasts and like you have it. You're the character for this. So of course I'll be back.
Dude, oh man, that feels like really good to hear. I haven't heard that yet before, so I really feel good about that. Thanks, man. That's the best compliment I could ever get. Seriously. So thank you.
Yeah, man, you're so welcome.
All right, we'll see you until next time. Thanks again, Ronnie. Alright guys, there's an episode of Scratch Your Own Itch. Please know this. I'm listening. I am listening to you. And it means the world to me that you take the time out of your day to listen to this podcast. And I would love for you to connect with me. I'm giving out a free PDF right now. It's my philosophies that make me remind myself on what I'm truly here to do on this planet right now. Because there's so many things that you can get inspired by throughout the day. And so I got a personal philosophy that I'm giving out as a free PDF. But also, if you want, join my Facebook group, Scratch Your Own Itch. I'll put it in the show notes. And if you want to find Ronnie, what he's doing, I'm going to put that in the show notes as well. And please don't ever forget that if you want to make this podcast get found and this thing gave you any inspiration or any informative information that you didn't know before, please just hit that share button. I'd really appreciate it. I know that it takes time out of your day, and sometimes sharing things, let's face it, like when you hear something that's gold, like sometimes you have that thought that's like, I don't want to share this because there's too many people that might know my secrets now. But I really appreciate any shares that you do because we're in this together. It's a community that I want to build. I want to build like-minded people that come together. And in this podcast, we even talk about, creatures of our environment. Like, you can create the environment that you want, not just by being physically there, but by being there mentally, and then technologically using that tool of technology to get there. So please, if you could, subscribe to this podcast, share it, and leave a review. I know that's asking about so much, so forgive me, but I don't want you to ever forget that you matter and you're enough.